Previously on the Rod Pedersen Show.
You know how it works. He carries the show.
I love the way you... What's your relationship like without prying? I'm going to pry anyways. Away from the studio. Because you tease the heck out of each other in the studio. Is it like it outside the building?
Yeah, I think, Gordon and I, at the end of the day, we're not going over to each other's houses for barbecues during the summer. But at the end of the day, we do have, I think, a great deal of respect for one another. We've each been doing this, like you, Rod, for a long, long time now. And I've got a lot of respect for anybody who's stuck around our business, Rod, like yourself and like Gord, for as long as we have, because it's a very unstable business, if you know what I mean. I met Gord for the first time back in 1992, and I was a young reporter for the then Standard Broadcast News. We're the competing newswire service for all the radio stations in Canada. So I worked at Standard, and I got sent down to a bunch of Leafs games. Gord was working color on radio with the Leafs back then. He had finished up as the general manager and was working color. I was sitting next to the woman who turned out to be Gord's wife in the press box, Lisa, and we struck up a conversation. And during one of the intermissions, he said, "Oh yeah, here's my husband, Gord Stellick." And I was in awe. I was like, "This is the Gord Stellick, the former general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is the team I grew up idolizing." And so all these years, and we've kept in touch after all these years, but all these years later, we get to do a radio show together each and every morning and talk about hockey. So it's a fun existence, and he's a great guy to work with.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say all the how things have changed since then. From here, I'm going to do a podcast on the Panthers and Lightning with Bill Lindsay. We didn't even barely have the internet back then, let alone how things have changed. But anyways, I enjoy how much fun you guys have on there and enjoyed your interview with my good friend Shane Knighty today. We have a bit of a theme, Scott, and it is today, which non-playoff team, if you could only pick one, do you expect to make it this year? It feels like everybody's got a different one. Who would be yours?
Well, I think the low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to take this, Rod, I think is going to be New Jersey. I think that situation sets up really well for Sheldon Keefe to move in there. For all the criticism Sheldon Keefe took as the head coach of the Leafs, we know one problem he didn't have, Rod, and that was winning hockey games during the regular season, right?
Get ready for the Rod Pedersen Show.
Do you believe in sports curses? Mike White, who's supposed to be the next big thing with the Jets, goes down in the first quarter, but they're saying there's got to be a curse on the Jets. And our question to you, the viewers, is do you believe in sports curses? Can't make up my mind whether I believe in them or not. Because on one hand, I say the harder you work, the luckier you get. But on the other hand, I'm very spiritual and believe there's a plan and all the rest, so I don't know.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Hi, everybody. Here we go. Welcome to a brand new week of the RP Show, coming at you live on the Game Plus television network. That's Canada-wide. And streaming as well, and, of course, in podcast form, wherever the best podcasts are found. The Moose joins us, and, Darren, we're going to jump right into this. I'm just going to tell the world and sundry. Got a little bit of a hum here. There we go. I think we're good. There we go. That we got to go fast because we got the Motor City Mad Mouse Scott Morganroth coming in the next segment. We got Gus Frerotte, Pro Bowl quarterback from the National Football League in hour one, and Jessi Pierce from NHL.com Minnesota in hour two, plus more of the Motor City Mad Mouth. So our director is Ryan. Can you hit the quick stick show horn, Ryan? And we'll go. We're going to get through as many of these topics with Darren as we can before moving in Scott, who's already here in our spacious South Florida studio. Point number one, star outfielder Juan Soto and the New York Mets have agreed to a record $765 million 15-year deal. Soto's deal is the largest and longest in MLB history, topping Shohei Ohtani's $700 million 10-year contract with the LA Dodgers, and Fernando Tatis's deal with the Padres, $340 million over 14 years. Soto's deal does not include deferred money, which Shohei Ohtani's does, according to the New York Post, who broke the story of the signing, Darren. We're going to open with that. We don't normally talk a little baseball. We'll get a lot more into it with Scott. But that's what I'm seeing. Maybe it's because I'm here in the good old U.S. of A. How about up there in Canada? Are they talking about this as much as I'm seeing?
Yeah, they are. Jays,
I
Yankees,
figured.
Red Sox, Dodgers, they were all part of this, I understand, with multi hundreds of millions of dollar deals, $600-700 million deals. At the end, he's going to go across town. The Mets are gonna claim him, and Bob's your uncle. And I think what I'm hearing though, as much about the Mets side of this and him signing with New York. I think that's the lesser of two evils. I think in terms of Canadians and Jays fans, we're sitting there thinking, okay, he's in the National League now. He didn't stay with the Yankees. He's out of the division. That's all great. But now they're looking at the Jays saying, okay, this happened last year with Shohei Ohtani. Do you have a plan B? Because last year it seemed like they didn't, and they skipped all the way down to plan F. So they hope that the Jays have a plan.
Yeah, like I said, we got to go quick. I feel we could spend 2 hours on this, but it's cute. The Torontonians and Blue Jays fans actually thought they were in on Juan Soto, just like they thought they were in on Ohtani. They're not. You never will be. And that's not a hater. I will always be a Blue Jays fan, but Toronto, when it comes to baseball and, frankly, NBA too, you're not in with the big boys. And I've been reading the coverage on this. I think it's hilarious. In New York, the hate between the Mets and the Yankees is intriguing. I'm not envious of it, but I think it's kind of funny. And they're saying, hey, the Jets got the biggest wallet. Their owner, Cohn, has a bigger wallet than Steinbrenner. So what? You haven't won. You know what I mean? But that's and that brings us to our poll question, by the way, before we move on, which is brought to you by EMJ Marketing. They'll provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Will the New York Mets win a World Series over the term of this Juan Soto deal? Will they win a World Series with Soto? I voted yes. He already has one World Series under his belt with the Washington Nationals. He's a four-time All-Star. He is all that. We'll debate this a little later with the Motor City Madmouth because we're moving on to point two. Thomas Harley scored twice in his team's 4-goal third period as the Dallas Stars beat the Calgary Flames 4-2 on Sunday in the NHL. Jonathan Huberdeau and Connor Zary scored for the Flames, who remain a point out of a playoff spot behind the Canucks and the Oilers in the tight Pacific Division. As far as NHL leftovers coming out of the weekend, not going to spend a lot of time on that either. But this morning I was listening to NHL radio. Steve Kouleas was on there. He and I worked together with the Score television network way back 20-plus years ago. So I know Cooley well. And he said this morning on NHL radio, these are the 8. Write it down. On December 9, the top 8 in the NHL's Western Conference right now are those that will make the playoffs. The Flames aren't one of them. So it's not just me saying it was a Cinderella Flames start to the season. Cooley's saying it too. He goes, it was cute, it was fun, but it was never going to last. These are the 8. In the West, would you go along with that?
It's really hard to say. I think it's still too early to say that there's not going to be any movement. I think it's way too early for that. Do I think the Flames are going to end? I don't know. But we always seen that. We overreact way too at the beginning of the year. Last year with the Oilers out of the playoffs for so long. And even this year, not being in the playoff race, it all settles. And it seems like it goes where it lands where it's supposed to. I'm not ready to say this is the 8, though.
Well, as we say on the farm, and this phrase has gotten into the big city vernacular too, the wheat separates from the chaff around mid-December. Check the calendar, Moose. I'm with Cooley. And whether these are the exact 8, maybe not. But I don't think the Flames are going to make the playoffs. I had them picked last in the division. I know that was kind of rough, but I'm with Cooley. I think these are the 8. And you know what? If that's the way that it is for the next 2/3 of the regular season, so what? There's still going to be, I'm with you, a lot of jockeying. But I think the wheat has separated from the chaff prior to Christmas. There's no reason to cry over spilt milk. You know that one, Scott? I don't know these sayings we can get in here. The cream rises to the top. Whatever you want to say, Moose, it's happened. By the way, where's my bell? Drink clean, live green. Filter your water for a healthier tomorrow. Culligan Water of Regina. Visit CulliganRegina.com. Point 3, Matthew Wright kicked a 31-yard field goal that banked off the left upright as time expired and in. A doink and in, and the Kansas City Chiefs survived another close game, beating the LA Chargers 19-17 on Sunday Night Football to give them a 9th straight AFC Western title. Patrick Mahomes led the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs on a clock-killing 4.5-minute drive to set up Wright's fourth field goal. So let me ask you this. Our good friend Hustler Pedersen over there from Winnipeg Sports Talk, they call him our Manitoba cousin, doing this digital thing like us. He's the big Chiefs fan who says they're not winning by enough. It's going to cost them in the playoffs. We'll get into this with Scott Morganroth, but I'll put it to you. I don't subscribe to that. This isn't college football. A win is a win, and come playoff time, it doesn't matter. They're still winning. 9 straight division titles. I don't think you should be upset by that if you're a Chiefs fan. But do you subscribe to the not winning by enough argument in the National Football League?
Only so far. Like, I don't have the Chiefs as my number one team or my top 2 right now in the National Football League in my top 5 because they're just not giving me enough confidence. But they're only going to get better. They got guys that are injured. They're going to get more guys back. Guys that are, Isaiah Pacheco's back in the lineup. They get more guys healthy. They're going to build steam. And for me, I'm watching those games, and it just feels like they're playing with teams. Not like they're toying with you. Like they can just kind of go at 50%, and they know that when they need to at the end, they're just going to run a clock-depleting drive and kick a field goal and get out of there with the win, and no big deal. We didn't expel too much. We didn't, go all out and, waste our energy to beat them by a million. We just got the win, and they're only going to get better. They always save this kind of stuff for the playoffs, so I'm not worried.
It's funny you say that. Here we are on the Monday. My brother says that we live in a 24-hour world. We forgot yesterday. We don't have the foresight to look ahead to tomorrow. It's all about today and being prisoners of the moment. I think he's right in that. And if we're talking about NFL leftovers coming out of Week 14 from Sunday. Tonight, the week closes with my Dallas Cowboys home to the Cincinnati Bengals. But remember Thursday night and the 5 gambles that Dan Campbell made with the Detroit Lions on the way to winning? And I put it in my weekend 10 things column that airs with comes out with our newsletter that we do. That's where my column is now. Subscribe to our newsletter at rodpeterson.com. Sign up for free and you'll get it. It's growing by 100% every week, the readership. I said it was only media that was criticizing Dan Campbell for all his gambles and saying that he cost them a chance at a Super Bowl berth last year. He's going to cost them with his big balls and all this gambling on fourth down stuff. I had a Canadian Football Hall of Famer write in, watching the show. I think he's still living in Hamilton for his own protection. I'm not going to name him, but he goes, I'm a football guy that's blaming Dan Campbell and that this is going to cost him down the line. I could go back and read it. It's in our inbox, our show inbox, so all of our staff can see it. So it's not just the media that's criticizing Dan Campbell, and that's Scott's team. It should be interesting to hear what the Motor City Madmouth has to say about this living on the edge philosophy of the Detroit Lions under Dan Campbell. But I continue to say this. That Hall of Fame player never did coach a game, for one. And for two, I continue to say, I'm getting tired of it, 1,394 shows we've done. Football remains the number one hindsight sport. So he goes for it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it still instills the confidence in the locker room. We talked about that here on Friday, Darren. But on the Dan Campbell thing, I don't know if you've thought about it since Thursday, but our inbox has had comments from the football people criticizing Dan Campbell. So it's not just the media. Where are you on that as they continue to look to lock down the number one seed in the NFC?
I'm still okay with it. And I'm also okay with it if I'm the Detroit Lions and you go for it on fourth down and you don't get it. Because nobody's going to be 100%, especially when you're going for it on 4th and 3, 4, 5, 6. He's not really, you're leaving 3 points off the board sometimes, but you're not exactly doing it from your own 5-yard line and giving them a touchdown in return. I'm fine with it. This is part of their identity, and it brings confidence throughout the organization that they can get it. Not when you go for it once in a blue moon, it's like, okay, maybe we're going to get this, maybe we're not. It's like, of course we're going for fourth down because we're absolutely going to get it. And they do. It's incredible.
This Hall of Famer from Hamilton, by the way, I'm not going to name him. Maybe if you subscribe to our newsletter, I'll put it in there. But I'm not going to tell you. But it was something along the lines of, there's a difference between balls and brains, and he may have balls, but he doesn't have brains. Football people speak. You know what I mean? So, again, I didn't even write him back. I know all you Hamilton area viewers are dying to know who it is, and maybe you can guess who it is by what I'm saying. I don't know. but I'm not going to tell you who it is on this program. And I don't have the energy to argue. I also don't have the time to explain why. We move on to point 4. The committee that chose the 12 contenders for college football's national title was only worried about ranking the team. Where those teams landed in the bracket, i.e. who they played, was based on a formula created by the conference commissioner that jumbled up the pairings and made a strong case for tinkering with this formula in the future. Some possible tweaks like reseeding after the first round or not giving conference champions automatic buys would have resulted in a vastly different tournament this year. But it is what it is. We drove home yesterday from Nashville. 2 of our hours in the car were spent listening to ESPN Radio's Selection Sunday, a 2-hour program on radio discussing the bracket, which we will not get into here, but we will with Scott in the next segment. Indiana versus Notre Dame, SMU versus Penn State, Clemson versus Texas, Tennessee versus OSU. There's the games. 4 teams have a bye we haven't mentioned. Derek Dooley was one of the analysts on there, longtime college coach, former Cowboys receivers coach, saying on the panel yesterday on ESPN Radio, there's not enough coaches on this selection committee. It needs to be more coaches. Serena's driving. She's like, he's right. I'm like, yeah, said the coach. You get all these athletic directors on there probably thinking that there should be more athletic directors on there. Coaches aren't going to agree any more than this committee will. I wondered, after the wild, zany results of the conference championship games on the weekend, what overtime in Atlanta, the SMU-Clemson game, they're all nuts. How long the committee would have stayed. Did they stay up all night, pull an all-nighter like a telemiracle? No. They stayed up till 1:30 in the morning, Darren, debating all this, and then they went to sleep, went to bed, reconvened at 8:30 a.m., met all morning, leading up to the noon announcement of the bracket. So it is pretty fascinating, isn't it? A little confusing, too. We'll get into more of that later, but what is your take of the bracket that made it? Alabama, Miami, obviously not making it, so there's some long faces with those programs.
Yeah, the biggest intrigue on the weekend was the ACC championship and Clemson beating SMU. I think SMU wins, and it's pretty easy to put SMU in, Clemson out, Alabama's in. The committee's going to shut the book, and it's easy. But then Clemson wins, and they're blowing out SMU in the first half. So now it's easy. SMU's out, and Alabama's in again, and everybody's happy. But then SMU came back and only lost by a field goal in the last play. Now it got difficult. They ended up leaving Alabama out. And the only tinkering that'll happen is just, yeah, you're right. Because you look at the groups of 3 for the Final 4 spots. Clemson, Texas, winner plays Arizona State. That's pretty favorable for Texas. And Penn State, SMU, winner plays Boise. That's pretty favorable for Penn State. Meanwhile, Oregon's got to deal with the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State. The number 1 seed's got the toughest bracket. So there's some things they'll sort out in the next year probably, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. And the Motor City Madmouth coming in next. He and I have debated this, and I say it's incredibly confusing, and he says, no, it's not. And to him, I don't think it is, because he grew up in this American college football environment. I did not. But it's confusing right down to this, as it was explained to me, if this is to be believed, because I'm a longtime Alabama fan, but I realized they didn't have the type of year that they belonged to be in any playoff bracket at all. So they didn't make it. So I'm not upset about it. But this Derek Cooley, the college coach that was on the panel, said if SMU had continued to be blown out by Clemson like they were, they wouldn't have been included in the 12 and Alabama would have got in. But they came back in the game, had a wonderful second half, and forced Clemson to win it on a game-ending field goal. So then they get in, SMU. Do you not find that confusing? I do. But I guess a lot of people don't. So,
yeah, only a little bit. You're trying to put the best teams in. You have to take the eye test. And it's kind of like looking at the last game. It's like they were ranked ahead of Alabama. Did they do something to justify falling? And if they would have got blown out, that would have justified by a team that wasn't in the playoff. Clemson wasn't in your top 12. That would justify falling backwards, just like Alabama's big blowout loss at the end of the season to an unranked team. That moved Alabama back.
We're out of time here, but as you pointed out to me, we already know that Curtis Rourke, the Canadian kid from Oakville, Ontario, is the quarterback for Indiana. So if you're looking for a rooting interest, there's that for Canadians. I didn't know David Benefield's kid plays on Boise State. I didn't even know that. Mr. Furious, the CFL great. You pointed that out to me this morning. So there's a lot of reasons for Canadians to get geared up for this moving into the holiday season. But Darren, your day's done. Great job, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
The Motor City Madmouth, Scott Morganroth, coming in next from the South Florida Tribune. And also Gus Frerotte and Jessi Pierce on the way. We're live on the Game Plus Television Network, streaming live as always, and of course podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit. As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Back in the cozy environs of South Florida, it is the RP Show on Game Plus Television, airing across 32 U.S. states, including Florida, and, of course, national television in Canada and streaming live. Look at that gorgeous face. I'm talking about the Motor City Madmouth, Scott Morganroth. What's going on, Scott?
Glad to be here with you, Rod, as always.
It's glad to be anywhere in this business, isn't it?
Oh, I enjoy it. Only doing it for most of my whole life.
He is the publisher of the South Florida Tribune. He's the publisher of one book and another on
I'll
the
be
way.
working on another one beginning in January, hoping to release it later this spring.
Okay, well, this just looks so good. It looks so cozy. Great job. Our director is Ryan Rocco Baracco. Our producer is producer Clark Monroe. We've got a ton of comments have come in. Here we go. Joshua Dorr. We'll read one from our guy Joshua here in South Florida. He says, congratulations to Scott on your 45-year anniversary in the business. I thought it was 46.
I should be 45 on December 29th, my birthday this year.
There you go. December 29th, 45 years in the in the business. So you saw the topics we were going through.
Right.
We got a ton of comments have come in from the viewers. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm shocked how much our viewers are into the college football scene. I thought it was historically NHL, CFL, but college football does have a big impact on the Canadian Football League too. So let me ask you this: coming out of Week 14 in the NFL, this Juan Soto news in college football. What's the biggest news in your world right now? The biggest news.
I mean, how do you not go with Juan Soto?
Yeah. Okay.
But the one thing that people have to understand is the New York Yankees offer him a 16-year deal at $760 million. So they offered him one more year, $5 million less. So they were in the ballpark. I found it very interesting to see how those figures were so close, but yet the Mets ended up getting Soto for 15 and 765 instead of the Yankees 16 and 760.
So will you take a swing at our poll question before we do get into the NFL and college football and all the other topics? The poll question is, for our friends at EMJ Marketing, they'll provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Will the Mets win a World Series with Juan Soto? They got 15 years to do it now, and by far the number one payroll in the majors. Is he going to pay off with a World Series win?
Oh, I have no doubt that they will.
Yeah,
Steve Cohen's willing to spend the money, and he's not one of those controversial guys who's always yelling at you. He's a fan that wants to do what he's got to do around there, and he's building around Citi Field. So you're talking about a guy that has a great ballpark, who's building around the area and wants to go out there and bring in the best players. That franchise for a year has always been in flux. Everybody talks about the Wilpons owning it and so forth. But see, Cohen's the best thing that can happen to the Mets. And if he can bring him in for that kind of money, more power to him. He's an East Coast guy is what Soto is. He didn't want to go west. He was there with the Padres, decided to come back east. Had a good year with the Yankees. But I like what the Mets are doing over there. I really, really do.
But again, the biggest payroll. They had the biggest payroll last year. It's only going to swell this year. And I hope that it pays off.
Well, that luxury tax is a Steve Cohen tax. Really? I mean, they only incorporated it for Steve Cohen. I think they got a third or fourth tier, and they call it the Steve Cohen tax. But he doesn't really, frankly, care. If all these other small market teams wants to collect off his money, so be it. Who knows what they're going to do with it. This guy simply is passionate, wants to win. He's willing to spend the money to it. But he's not loud and rude like a lot of owners. He just goes out there and makes changes. And keep in mind, he brought David Stearns in from Milwaukee, which had no resources, to give him the resources of the Mets. So what do you have? A much different working environment with a shrewd baseball man inside of an organization that has a lot of assets to work with.
Well, I'll tell you what, God bless baseball with their winter meetings going on in Dallas. And here we are midweek of December, or second week of December, and they're the number one story in sports is Juan Soto, at least as of today. Okay, so
I've actually covered the winter meetings many years ago.
Well, hey, let me say this. The guy's Scott wrote a book, and it's called Lessons from the Microphone.
Correct.
And I'm actually enjoying it. And your buddies of South Florida have tuned in. I hope they've all read it. I'm really enjoying Scott's stories, which we're not going to get into here. But I want to tell our viewers, for those longtime viewers of this show, if you weren't paying attention earlier, Scott is in earlier appearances by Scott, he's the American John Frenzy, which means nothing to you. But he's the Hall of Fame broadcaster for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and he was like my surrogate dad. Him and my dad graduated high school together. You guys are the same. It's a compliment, by the way.
Well,
he's the American John Frenzy, just so you all know. Now, before in his stories in the book, this was one of the things that reminds me. Just casually, John Frenzy would tell me that, I had supper one night with who's the voice of the LA Raiders? Brent Musburger.
Brent Musburger, my idol.
Yeah, I had supper with Brent Musburger at the K. What? Stories. He has these nuggets of his history that no big deal to you, which most guys would give an appendage and gals to do in this media business. But just hang on. And John Frenzy gave me anxiety just like Scott's giving me anxiety. You got a million things to get to, and we can only talk about one thing at a time. So we did baseball. I want to move over to college football. Utah Darren writes in, and he says it was an unusual situation. The best college quarterbacks were not in the championship games. James Warnicki writes in, he says, the Irish get a home playoff game. Yeah, and they'll be playing Indiana. Utah Darren goes on to say Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are on teams that didn't make their conference championship game. And that's where I wanted to move this into you. Cam Ward, the Miami quarterback, who I've compared to Warren Moon. That's what I see. Not even going to be in the playoff, man. That sucks. You've been covering Miami all year.
Yeah, Cam Ward's a great player. You can't rely on him by himself, though. The Miami's defense, to me, has been a bit of a problem for us all year. It really has. Cam Ward has done everything except wear a Superman's cape is what he's done. So when you look at the fact that the Canes aren't in the college football playoff, think of this. They lost to two unranked opponents. You don't lose to Georgia Tech, and you do not lose to Syracuse, let alone the fact that you had a 21-0 lead over Syracuse, but unfortunately Miami lost. You lose 2 of your last 3 games to unranked teams. This is the sort of thing where you're lobbying to try to get in. Period.
Yeah.
No shortage of weapons on that team. The defense just simply couldn't hold. I'm not going to blame Mario Cristobal for that field goal that he made when they say he should have gone for a field goal, rather a touchdown, with under 3.5 minutes. No, I'm not going to do that because Andy Borregales will be playing on Sundays. He's the most reliable kicker on the planet. Take notes, NFL scouts. If the defense would have held up, Miami gets the ball back. You have a different situation. I will never go out there and question Mario Cristobal for what he's going to do. Maybe other people probably will. I refuse to do that.
Well, you know what's funny is of all the 2 hours of coverage I said we listened to in the car driving down here on ESPN Radio, driving home, nobody brought up the fact that Cam Ward, a Heisman candidate, is not in the game, nor Colorado, who Shedeur Sanders is not a Heisman candidate, but they do have the Heisman favorite on their roster, and they're not in the playoff. Nobody.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
Clearly, it doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Well,
sucks for those players.
Well, let me ask you a question, okay? How many Heisman Trophy winners have won the Super Bowl? You probably can't think of too many. I know one of the older ones is Jim Plunkett, and he didn't even win the Super Bowl with the team that he was originally drafted. He was drafted by the New England Patriots and ended up winning it with the Raiders. So when you look at a lot of these, I would rather not win the Heisman Trophy or let alone be selected first and win a Super Bowl. The only thing the Heisman Trophy does is it looks good on your resume and you get to vote for the next guy year after year after year, and you be in that club. It doesn't do anything for me in terms of championship pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
It really, I think it's the most overhyped trophy on the planet. It usually goes to running backs and quarterback. How many guys have ever won it that haven't had it? The one I can think of is Charles Woodson, was a defensive player. And, of course, Desmond Howard was a wide receiver with Michigan.
Do you not think it's disappointing the nation won't see Cam Ward?
What,
That's
in
all
the
I'm
college
saying.
football playoff?
In the college football playoff. That's all I'm saying.
Yes and no, because the Miami Hurricanes had a chance to get in. They control their own destiny. Mm-hmm. So would they be disappointed? Sure, but it wasn't meant to happen. It just wasn't meant to. And the reality is they've got a pretty good bowl game here up the road in Orlando against Iowa State. So it would be disappointing, but I had a feeling that when they lost to Syracuse, this could happen.
Robin in Prince Albert writes in and says, do you think Coach Mario Cristobal is kicking himself for leaving Oregon?
Absolutely not. Really, absolutely not. He won 2 national championships as a player here. He's Miami football. No, not at all. He did a good job up in Oregon. Oregon's in good hands with Dan Lanning. Mario Cristobal has done an outstanding job in his third year, and it only figures to get better and better as time goes on. I've gotten to know Cristobal the last 3 years, and he's certainly a great coach, but more importantly, he's the type of guy who's a straight shooter is what he is.
Two last things. Number one, if that wasn't John Friend, just looking at me right now, number one. Number two, Brent in Wellington, Florida writes in, and it's our last one because you're going to go off for a minute or two on this, and then we're going to have to break and bring in Gus Frerotte. Brent in Wellington, Florida writes in, he says, Madmouth, Dan Campbell's fourth down gambling. Love it or hate it?
I have no problem with it. I'll tell you why. Does anybody ever realize that Vince Lombardi used to go for it on fourth and short a lot of times? Does that make Vince Lombardi a bad coach? All he does is have the Super Bowl winning trophy named after him. But Dan Campbell also came to Detroit on a 6-year contract. This team was dormant when he ended up inheriting it. They've broken records that were unimaginable with the Lions. You might give you a few gray hairs if he's doing it. Sure, but you got to remember one thing. This year they brought in Jake Bates from the United Football League, and he's not gambling on it as much as he did before because he has a kicker that can kick within the 50-yard line. So he's doing it less. 4 out of 5, Dan Campbell's coaching the way Dan Campbell does. For all those media critics out there that want to criticize it, I'm in it with you. Go ahead, put on some shoulder pads and see if you can do any better. I'm not going out there and jumping on Dan Campbell at all.
No, that was my thing all weekend. I was like, only media people were criticizing Dan Campbell from what I could see. And then I had some football Hall of Famers writing me saying the same thing. But I'm like, you wouldn't be saying that had the gambles worked. And by the way, on Thursday night, they did. And he won the football game. Brett writes in, he says, what Dan Campbell is betting on is building a team philosophy that we are bigger and stronger than them and will always make. So that's already one segment down with the Motor City Badmouth, and we've barely got going. Okay, we got a break. When we come in back, Pro Bowl, Gus Frerotte joins us. We are live on Game Plus, streaming live, and of course, podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
Skate into the holiday season with the Stars. Stars on Ice 2024 Holiday Tour. With figure skating icon Elvis Stoico, Olympic medalist Caitlin Osmond, Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poche, Keegan Messing, Satoko Miyahara, and more. Stars on Ice. Coming to Moose Jaw Event Center December 20th. Unwrap your tickets at starsonice.ca.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Mo.
The Moustache is calling. Raise funds, save lives. Donate at Movember.com.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders. Plus, behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Hockey teams, are you looking for just the right place for your team bonding sessions and outings? Look no further than Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary with state-of-the-art equipment, spacious shooting lanes, and games for all ages. Overtime Hockey Lanes is the perfect destination for you, especially if you were a dum-dum and you forgot to book your Christmas party. They can help you out. 28th Street Northeast, Calgary. Okay, we've got him now. Gus Frerotte joins us, Pro Bowl quarterback, many-year NFL veteran, as we come out of Week 14. And it closes tonight with Cleveland at Detroit. Merry Christmas, Gus. You're very Santa-looking. What's going on with you today? What do we got?
Trying to keep that look going, you know.
I like it. You're winning with it. It's very timely and seasonal. Listen, on our program so far today, Dan Campbell and his gambling has come up. It seemed like a month ago, that Thursday night win at home over Green Bay. Where are you on the gambles with Dan Campbell? Will it cost this team eventually, or do you like it?
No, I like it. I think that you got to do it if you got to stick to it, right? You can't be, I'm going to do it one week and not do it the next week, because I think your guys are anticipating it. And I think it gives you an extra down on offense. I mean, there's there are downsides, obviously, because I think we've seen the former coach of the Chargers do it a lot and not do it to where it was benefiting them enough. But I think with the team that Dan has, I think they're going to go for it, and they're going to get that conversion. That rate's going to be way higher than any other team.
I like it too. I just the criticism out there is about 50-50, and as I say, it's mostly media criticizing him, not football guys, but there are some football guys that are against it. I'd like to know your take on the Monday nighter tonight, as Cowboys fan that I am. Dallas going for its third straight win. Cincy there, and the Bengals are favored by 5. What do you expect coming out of Jerry World tonight?
Who knows? You never know. They've won games in different ways. Obviously, special teams has helped them a lot. But, without Dak there and, it's just been an unknown for Dallas without some of their stars, and they've had some injuries. But, they're playing the Bengals, who haven't been great, but also been great, right? Joe Burrow is phenomenal in the pocket, and he's doing things that, any team would love to have their quarterback do. They have some phenomenal receivers. It's just I think it's a hard game to pick, because everybody wants to pick the Bengals, but yet they haven't been winning. So I think just Jerry World, it's going to be exactly what you call it, Jerry World, and it's going to be a kind of a who's who, and I think whoever has the ball last is going to be the winner.
Well, we had a lot of games like that in Week 14, and tonight might be a bit of a grease fire of a game, but we have to tune in. I want your take on Joe Burrow, if you don't mind. I saw a stat last week that Tom Brady had 4 games in his career where they scored 33 points but lost. His team. It's happened 4 times this year to Joe Burrow. How would you feel if you were him?
Not very good. I guess if I look back on it, I'd be happy I was getting paid like that. But But, you know, it's all about winning. And no matter what you do, if you watched the game last night, you know, if you said Josh Allen's going to put 44 points up and they're going to lose, then who would have thought that was going to happen? But it's just it's hard to watch Joe play so well, put the ball so accurately to his receivers, even when they're double covered, and those guys can make catches, and they're still coming out on the losing end. But I think Joe is playing at a really high level, and I think his demeanor is one that the Bengals need, because I've played there, and it's pretty easy to get down when you lose in Cincinnati.
3 years ago, they were in a Super Bowl. Do you see them getting back anywhere close, or is this what they are right now?
Well, obviously, I think they have to address their defense. I think if they address their defense and fix the positions that need fixed on defense, then they may have a chance, because their offensive weapons, I don't think really you need to mess with them. There's going to be plenty of running backs out there. They have the receiver talent. They have good tight ends, you know, and just keep upgrading the offensive line so that you keep Joe Burrow healthy. I think that's the biggest thing that the Bengals are going to have to look at going into the future is, can we keep Joe healthy over years? And that starts with those 5 guys up front.
You know, it's been a while since I talked to you, Gus. I'm wondering, how did you feel when the Steelers made the move from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson? Did you defer to the experience of Mike Tomlin, or did you think he was nuts, or should have stayed with Justin Fields? What was your take on that whole situation there?
I actually love the way he did it, because I think they got Justin Fields enough experience with the team, with the players, with the system to learn it, to understand it, to go out, and he won enough games for him so they could be in a good spot. I don't think Russell Wilson was healthy. I think he's been happy in Pittsburgh, but I don't think he's been very healthy at the beginning of the year. And now he's healthy. He's football, you know, he loves the game. And so and he's not worried about contract. He's not worried about anything but going out and winning games. And I think he's making his team better. They have some good components right now. And they won that last game very handedly, even without their best receiver. So what I think Coach Tomlin has done is really, really good. And I think when he makes decisions, he sticks with them. And, you know, no one can argue with never having a losing season that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, they're always going to be criticized, but he keeps proving everybody wrong. Do you remember, Gus, who your preseason Super Bowl pick was? And if so, is it still, or has it changed?
Well, I kind of, from the NFC, it was hard to tell, you know, because I really didn't have Philly in there. I knew the Lions were going to be very good, and they're proving that they are, and that they're tough and they're gritty, just like the coach wants them to be. So I think the NFC, I kind of knew that. The AFC, you know, we always kind of understood that the Chiefs may be in there, and I don't think I had that pick early on. And I think the AFC for me was the Ravens. That's who I kind of thought was going to be the best team with some of the additions they made in the offseason. But right now, man, it's up for grabs. You know, anybody can win. We saw last night that, you know, the Bills defense didn't look as good as we thought they were. And, you know, the Chiefs seem to just win these games in the last minute. Whether it's luck or not, they're winning them. So you can't ever count the Chiefs out. And I think the Ravens as well, they have some good players. So on the AFC side, I think it's a kind of a crapshoot. I think the NFC side, I think it's going to come down. My guess it's going to be the Eagles and the Lions in the championship.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I said Lions, Chiefs, and I'm staying with that. But my last question to you is this. Even Chiefs fans are concerned they're not winning games by enough. And I'm sitting here saying this isn't college football. This isn't a selection committee. A win is a win. That's how I feel. But how are you on this, that they're not putting teams to bed way earlier in game?
They're winning games, you know. If, you wanted somebody who scored a lot of points but didn't win, you can look at the Bengals. But you want somebody who's going to win the game in the last quarter. I think you got the right quarterback for that because he's going to do what it takes to get you in field goal range. Even if there's no time on the clock, I think that he just does an amazing job of moving the ball down the field, making enough plays so that his team can win. Even though they may not have the top talent around him, he is doing an incredible job of getting the right people the ball at the right time.
While we get along, Gus, you and I see things the same way. There's a guy who wants to say, hey, Scotty, just stick your head in the camera here. Scott Morgan, a little closer. Come a little closer. Scott Morganroth from the South Florida Tribune.
Hey, Scott, how you doing?
He just said you were on his, he says you were on his show, the Sports Exchange. You wanted to pass along a hey. He says you're looking young and good to see
Scott.
you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, right.
Bring it back on my show. How does that
all right. Thank you, Gus. Merry Christmas,
great.
my
Thanks,
friend.
Scott.
Okay, thanks for the time, Gus.
All right, Merry Christmas, Rod. Everybody go to alumnimedia.com. Check us out.
Alumnimedia.com. That is the NFL alumni podcast crew. We'll be right back with a sports update and viewer takeover after this. We are live on the Game Plus television network, streaming live as well, and, of course, podcast, wherever the best podcasts are found.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
No. The Moustache is calling. Raise funds, save lives. Donate at Movember.com.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
It's a quickie here. We're breaking the format a little bit with the Motor City Madmouth in studio, but that's great because the viewers are enjoying it. Just a quick note, the Montreal Canadiens are the lone Canadian NHL team in action tonight. They'll host Anaheim in one of 3 games. Defenseman Jacob Trouba is expected to make his debut with the Ducks. He was acquired last week in a trade with the New York Rangers. NFL Monday Nighters, Dallas home to Cincinnati. And from the CFL, Elks quarterback Trey Ford and general manager Ed Hervey are scheduled to attend a news conference in Edmonton today. It comes after Ford and the Elks agreed to a long-term extension last week. The sports updates brought to you, as you know, by Landmark Cinemas. Okay, the Motor City Badmouth is here. South Florida Tribune, he publishes it. 45 years in the media business coming up December 29th. And you said, move up to the mic, Scotty. You said, ask me about that style points question that you put to Gus, that if teams aren't winning by enough.
People win the football game, period. That's all that matters. Would you rather be 10-2 with ugly wins or 2-10 with pretty wins? You tell me. Now, I will say once in a while when you run the score up, it does send a message to other teams that we can go in for the kill. So, you know, sometimes these coaches are running it up with the intent to send messages around the league to do a lot of different things. So that's that little psychology chess match that you really have going on there. So I don't care. As long as you come up on the right end of the scoreboard, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And by the way, Gus said, you're winning games at the end of the day. That's all that matters. And he says you got a quarterback that when the game's on the line is going to lead you on a game-winning drive, and that is Patrick Mahomes. I'm telling you, that's how the players and the coaches see it. It drives me nuts when I see the media pundits saying what they say. By the way, James Warnicki writes, and he says, how many ways can the New York Jets find ways to lose? Which NFL game? Did you watch this one yesterday, the Dolphins and the Jets?
Actually, the one I watched was Minnesota and Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Kirk Cousins' return, which really wasn't a game.
No, but you would have thought it would be anyway. But when you have Sam Darnold throwing for 5 touchdown passes and he's becoming a free agent, how many teams are out there going to be salivating for Sam come free agency when J.J. McCarthy's supposed to come back? And few people realize that Daniel Jones is the 3rd quarterback on that roster, whom the Vikings brought in from the Giants to just sit back and learn a little bit and chill out in Minnesota, and you can do a lot of chilling in Minnesota.
Well, you saw what happened here at Hard Rock Stadium, right?
Right.
Aaron Rodgers and the Jets marched down the field last minute and a half. Don't score a touchdown, but do score a field goal and leave too much time on the clock, which we don't have time in this clock to get into that. Again, going back to what most football people say, because you see what they're saying, Scott. The Jets left too much time on the clock. Let the Dolphins come down the field and tie it and go to overtime. Maybe play defense. I was thinking about this morning. It's hard enough to score, let alone scoring on schedule. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That argument, they left too much time, is a bad argument as far as I'm concerned.
Well, why do you think the Lions handled things on Thursday night the way they did? Dan Campbell wanted to avoid overtime every way that he possibly could, and that's why he made the moves that he could to set up Jake Bates for that winning field goal. So he wanted to win it in regulation, and he was letting people know, I want to do it. And all of a sudden, what you just brought up is exactly what Dan Campbell was looking to avoid.
Absolutely.
And once upon a time, Dan Campbell was an interim coach for the Miami Dolphins, and he was 5-7. Wasn't good enough to be with the Dolphins. Bad move.
Yeah, you know what?
How has that worked out in Detroit?
It's funny you say that because from what I hear, the Dolphins miss Dan Campbell. Not necessarily that they don't like Mike McDaniel, but that they miss Dan Campbell. His attitude and just the kind of guy that he is.
Well, sure. He's a great quote, too.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a timeout for the top of the hour. Okay, Motor City Madmouth?
Absolutely.
We got 30 seconds here. What would you like to discuss next hour?
Whatever you want.
Well, that was easy. We're going to turn it over to a lot of the viewers and viewer takeover in hour two. And Jessi Pierce joining us from the Minnesota Wild coverage of NHL.com and the Bar Down Beauties podcast. That's later on in hour two. We'll be right back after this brief pause here on Game Plus Television.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
IKS Game Day wishes to congratulate the city of Estevan and Affinity Place on their brand new center ice display. This state-of-the-art score clock features 5 LED faces with full motion graphics, scoring integration, and our new Halo mounting system. If it's time for an upgrade, let us show you how to deliver the best fan experience. You can find us at iksgameday.com.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Do you believe in sports curses? Mike White, who's supposed to be the next big thing with the Jets, goes down in the first quarter, but they're saying there's got to be a curse on the Jets. And our question to you, the viewers, is do you believe in sports curses? Can't make up my mind whether I believe in them or not. Because on one hand, I say the harder you work, the luckier you get. But on the other hand, I'm very spiritual and believe there's a plan and all the rest, so I don't know.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
It is guilty as charged. Thank you, Rick Regan. Welcome to the RP Show, everybody. It's hour 2, coming to you live on Game Plus Television, Canada-wide on Game Plus, which also airs in 32 U.S. states, including Florida. And that's where the Motor City Mad Mouse Scott and I are. I call him America's John Frenzy. A lot of you longtime viewers were in season 6 of the RP show will remember John Lynch, the Hall of Fame Rough Riders broadcaster who passed away about 1 year ago exactly. This is the American version. It's a compliment, Scotty. I know you didn't know him, but one day I'll play a clip for you or something so you know what we're talking about. It's a brand new week on the show, talking about new things. I will say this to Director Ryan back at the Millennium Falcon. Can you fire the Quick Six show horn, and we'll just tell everybody what we've been talking about. Thank you. Thank you. On episode number 1394 of the RP show here, point 1 was Juan Soto. He has signed the richest contract in MLB history, 15 years. What's the dose, Scott? 15 years? 765. Oh, producer Clark tells us 765 plus a $75 million bonus. It's a lot of money. It's hard to remember. That's point 1. That's the biggest thing in sports right now as of today, but we'll move on soon. NHL leftovers coming out of the weekend. I will just say Steve Coolius, longtime friend of mine from the NHL Network radio, saying the 8 teams you see in playoff spots in the Western Conference right now will be the 8 come playoff time. And I tend to agree on this December the 9th. Moose, who was with us 1 hour ago, does not agree. NFL leftovers from Week 14, college football playoff, Monday Night Football tonight, Cincinnati at Dallas. And the only thing we haven't talked about yet is tonight's NHL games. There are only 3. I'll get to those later when the Motor City Madmouth adjourns. And we will welcome and viewer takeover here in hour 2. Your comments, 902-518-3033 on the text line or the streams. Okay, Scott, you're relatively new to our show.
Okay.
I only got an hour, so can you tell the people about yourself in like a minute? I know it's a lot. Just introduce yourself to our people
no
again.
Problem. A veteran in the business, 45 years, started as a writer and a producer, have moved on to the broadcast side, and now I'm the author of a book called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. This summarizes my story, some of the folks I've dealt with, the great PR people, and a lot of things that you have to do when you're dealing with old school media versus new school business. It's in my blood. I love asking questions. I like writing stories, maximizing our creativity for what its capabilities are, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. And without this business, I don't know where I'd be, except probably I'd probably be in a loony box house.
We might put you in there anyway, Scott. I'll tell you what. I'm joking. He's the publisher of the South Florida Tribune. So as far as Florida media interests go, he is my boss. But he's from Detroit, went to school at the University of South Florida in Tampa Bay. You worked in the Carolinas and Phoenix.
Right.
Has that got it all?
Doing good.
Yeah, and your dad was a season ticket holder for the Detroit Red Wings in the 60s.
At Olympia Stadium, folks.
Yeah. You count yourself as a Detroit Lions fan, right?
I've written about the Lions for many years, too.
Yeah, but I also feel like you're not the biggest Red Wings fan. Am I right on that?
I love the Wings.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
No, you love wings. I was with you at Duffy's
Well, I
that
love
night.
the Red Wings, too. I know what you're trying to do. No. I think they made me tumble with that. No, I love the... No. Everybody knows about
This guy
it.
eats hot wings like it's nobody's business. So when he said, I love the wings, I'm like, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well, I do like to make sure that all you have left is bone, that's for sure. But no, I love the Red Wings. The Red Wings have always been great to me through the years, and it's a organization where I have a lot of friends that work there, and I'm very thankful for every friend that I've made with the Red Wings.
Utah Darren writes in, he says, to be the U.S. John Lynch. That's his real name, John Lynch. We call him John Frenzy because he's always in a frenzy. He goes, Scotty needs to wander off in front of the camera before the break. This gentleman passed away at the age of 84 last December. He would get up and walk off the set with the camera still rolling when his segments were done. He was just a character. You're not going to do that, are you?
Oh,
you did burp in the camera, though, the mic the first time you were here.
Oh, sure. You sat there and gave me Diet Coke. I decided to bring in Diet Mountain Dew, which eliminates that situation. So I furnished the drink. So Diet Mountain Dew's a little bit easier on the burp side.
Okay, well, you can burp in the mic as much as you want. You're good.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just
Diet
teasing
Mountain
you.
Dew to me is like premium gasoline, man. The more I get it, the harder I run.
Okay. So of all those things, the fun's out of the... No, the fun's not out of the way. The goofy is out of the way. The college football playoff bracket came down on Sunday, 2-hour special on ESPN radio. And the only reason I know it was on the radio is we were driving back from Nashville. A lovely drive, by the way. But here we go. Number 1 seeds Oregon. Number 2 seeds Georgia. Number 3 is Boise State. Number 4, Arizona State. They get the first week off of the college football playoff. And what we know are these. And there's a primer up at rodpeterson.com right now if you find this confusing. But it's number 10, Indiana, and Canadian Curtis Rourke, visiting number 7, Notre Dame. Number 11, SMU, Southern Methodist University, facing Penn State, who's number 6. Number 12, Clemson Tigers at the number 5, Texas Longhorns, coached by former Rough Rider quarterback Steve Sarkisian. And number 9, Tennessee at number 8, Ohio State University. Before we go any further, you don't find any of this confusing or how they came to this?
Not at all. Well,
okay. So do you agree? And out, first team out, Alabama. Second team out, Miami. We discussed last hour with Scott the worthiness of them being out, and you agree.
Well, they got the 12 right. Remember, when you talk about putting teams in a tournament like this, they have to perform at key moments. If you're Alabama, you don't lose to Vanderbilt, and you don't lose badly to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to get beat up in the SEC. They've had it really easy in the Big 12. Alabama did. Miami, albeit the 2 games they lost were decided inside of 10 points, you got to play defense. It's part of the sport. Defense is a requirement. It is not an elective. And at last I looked at Cam Ward, he was wearing a Hurricane jersey, not a Superman jersey. Okay? So the reality is you have to play defense. That's why those 2 teams are out. Now, bear in mind, this is the first year that they've had the selection, so you're going to be able to grow off of what it is, and every athletic director and program will say, all right, this is what they're looking for, and we'll know what we have to do in terms of scheduling is concerned. But the reason these 2 teams are out is they just lost a critical moment. They only have themselves to blame for it.
Well, just last year, folks, the number 1 most read story at USA Today, sports or news, the number 1 read story clicked on at USA Today was Florida State University not being picked for the final 4 teams. Last year was 4 teams. This year it's 12 for the first time ever because they were undefeated. I was kind of expecting, Scott, a similar type of furor. Even though they've expanded the field to 12 teams, there would be some teams upset that you're not in. We're not getting that.
Well,
we're not getting the furor.
Well, Mario Cristobal is taking everything in stride. He understands what he inherited from Manny Diaz, and now he's year 3 into building his program. Mike Norvell, you got to remember, he only had 4. If you had 12 Florida States in it, then you don't have a problem. And all these other players aren't leaving wherever they're at. But unfortunately, Mario Cristobal's done a good job. Alabama, DeBoer's done a good job following Saban when you consider the fact that it's a turnover. It's never easy to follow a legend. It really isn't. He left a cushy job at Washington to take the Alabama job. So it'll take him time to bring his own players in there. So I think the reality is when you know you controlled your own destiny, you have less to be upset about, or you should have less to be upset about.
To the number 1 item in sports right now, and I appreciate Darcy watching in Grand Prairie, Alberta. He's like taking an hour. We talked about this an hour ago, and he's just written in. He says, I'm hoping for the Blue Jays, on the text line, 902-518-3033. You can always reach us here. Hoping for the Blue Jays to land the big fish year after year makes me feel like Charlie Brown trying to kick that damn football. You and I know what he means.
Right.
A lot of our viewers know what he means. Some may not. But I think most people do. Always trying to kick that football. Always missing. Do you want us to make you feel better, Darcy, or tell you the truth? Because you said you're baseball 1 or football 1? 1, 2 for sports.
I want to say 1A and 1B.
Yeah, you're football and baseball. That's your thing.
Right.
It's just you sit outside Toronto or a Blue Jays fan like he's in Grand Prairie, Darcy. You were never going to get Juan Soto. I never thought they were. I laughed when I heard they were in on Juan Soto.
Let's go back to...
You got to try, I guess, but you don't get them. You don't get them.
Let's go back to SMU for a moment. first year in the ACC. They're not going to get any revenue for 9 years. So the boosters are fitting the bill so that they can play a step up in conference in a Power 4. So SMU's had a good year, and it doesn't hurt the fact they had Dabo Swinney lobbying for, big time for them on Saturday night, and lo and behold, SMU was a higher seed at 11 and Clemson's 12. Dabo didn't care. I'm in. And SMU, we're just glad that they made it with us.
I just want to address the Blue Jays not landing Juan Soto.
Okay.
Because that was the question from the viewer.
All right.
They were never going to be in on Juan Soto. That's why I said you're baseball first, or at least 1B.
Well, Juan Soto, to me, got $765 million from the Mets and would have gotten $760 from the Yankees. You think the Blue Jays could have forked over that kind of money, let alone what
they say they can? They say they can.
Well, sure, you got Molson or Rogers backing you up. You should be able to go ahead and back it up. But the reality is Ohtani, they could have gotten him too, but he wanted to stay in Southern California. It wasn't meant to happen. But the question is what are you going to have around him?
Well, I go back to this. The Blue Jays last year were 8th or 9th in the power rankings going into the year, ended up missing the playoffs, and it wasn't even close. It's not like it went down to the last week or even the last 2 weeks. The point is, yeah, I believe the Blue Jays tried. They were in. They met with Juan Soto. He admitted it. They talked about it, but he was never going to go there. They get used as a pawn time after time after time. And listen, I'm not the biggest baseball fan. Hockey and football are mine, as you know. But I'm trying to remember the last big name free agent the Blue Jays landed. And then what I'm saying by that, well, George Springer. But that was at $25 million a year. This deal here is $50 million, right, Clark? Plus the $75 million signing. They did get Springer. So that part, yeah, $51 million. But that's more than double what they were willing to pay George Springer. Now, him signing with the Mets is as much about the payday as it is the chance to win a World Series, is it not? It's not just about being paid.
Yeah, $5 million more, and you're playing 1 year less. I'd like to think that constitutes a little bit of money. Doesn't it? $5 million and to do it 15
Yeah, but who
years?
has the better chance of winning a World Series, the Mets
I'll
or
tell
the
you,
Yankees?
the Mets made a lot of noise. They struggled early, but then they started to get it together later on. So right now that this is the first domino to drop. Once you have one big domino like this to drop, we'll see where the Mets go. But the main thing that people have to understand in New York, and David Stearns is a general manager of the Mets, and he's a shrewd business mind. You had to get Soto in your pocket first. Now Stearns will talk to Cohen. This is where we need to go, and Cohen's going to stay in the background. Do what you got to do. I'll write the check.
That's how it's supposed to work. And it did work.
There.
Yeah, it worked there. Yeah, not every team operates that way.
Well, bear in mind, the previous regime, you had Bernie Madoff and his Ponzi scheme ripping off the Wilpons. You don't have to worry about that with Steve Cohen.
He's got the money. It's legit. Okay, so I don't know, man. Here's the thing. Scott says if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't be following the National Hockey League at all. That's why he brought me on to follow and cover the NHL for the South Florida Tribune, and I love it, and I'm all over it. That's my thing. You, with this Southern Methodist University, I'm following this, but not to the degree you are. SMU paid $200 million. Yeah. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. They stepped up in class. They wanted to be in a Power 4. If anybody understands the amount of money that you have in Texas, oil, Dallas, that's what you got there. Now, this team, I actually had an Inside the Pigskin on my network, and we talked about the death penalty to where they're at now. It's remarkable. They've had a lot of great coaches. There is a lot of money, and they wanted them in a Power 4. And the ACC wasn't turning down that kind of money. You want to be in a Power 4 that bad? We're not giving you any revenue for 9 years. SMU said, that's all right. The boosters will fit the bill. We want to come in. There's no way they were going to let them in. And then they're getting the revenue because all they're doing is winning. Right? They're in the college football playoffs. So SMU is now winning, and Dabo Swinney knows that the conference got paid to let them in, and the game a game. And now they're both in. So I think SMU is an inspiring story. They may be a sleeper in this thing when it's all said and done. They really are. You've got the best thing about the 12-team tournament is you may have a couple of sleepers in there. And I'll go a step further. I believe Indiana is going to beat Notre Dame. I really do.
Picks. Ooh, we haven't even got there yet.
Yeah, I believe it. It's the first time these two schools have met since 1991. Indiana will beat Notre Dame.
Well, it is, I'm not sure we're ready yet for the picks on these games. By the way, the primer is at rodpeterson.com right now with the games, the betting lines, and all the rest. That's a bold prediction by you.
Well, I didn't give you a score. I just said who's going to win the game.
Yeah, I know. I get it. Okay. We're going to do viewer takeover when we come back the rest of the way with the Motor City Madmouth and myself. For instance, BW watching in Edmonton says, has the Motor City Madmouth heard anywhere, and don't jump out on this, about where the Tampa Bay Rays are going to play next year? Their home stadium didn't do well this last hurricane season. We'll get to that. Monty in Saskatoon writes and he says, good show, Rod. Thank you, Monty. You love your college football.
That?
I know that, both Canadian and U.S., so I knew that we could do that lustily with the Motor City Madmouth today. We'll be back right after this. And Jessi Pierce is on the way from NHL.com. She covers the Minnesota Wild and also the Minnesota Vikings. We'll be right back on Game Plus Television, streaming live, and, of course, podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit. As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Brand new week, a wonderful week spent in the Music City, but we're back in South Florida with the RP Show, our regular home, episode number 1394. The Motor City Badmouth, Scott Morganroth is with us, the publisher of the South Florida Tribune. I'm not even going to read it. We're not going to get into college football picks yet. We've talked about it quite a bit here. I do want to say this. Scott's got a book out. It is called Lessons from the Microphone. I'm about halfway through it, and you can order it from your website, right? South Florida Tribune. You got it with you?
Yeah, I actually brought one with me.
Of course you brought it with you, just in case somebody asks, right?
Here you go, Rod.
You can write in 902-518-3033. Here's the book. You don't need to give me one. I already have one, and I'm reading
Right,
it.
I just want you to...
I'm going to tell some funny stories about this in a second. But what we do every day here is NHL breakaway bets. And in the absence of Moose, my co-host, who opened the show but then left to make room for you, you're going to have to make some picks for NHL games tonight, okay?
No problem.
You're okay with that?
Absolutely.
Move on up to the microphone, Scott, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This one should be easy. Your Detroit Red Wings at the Buffalo Sabres tonight. Two non-playoff teams. Who do you like in that game?
I'm going Buffalo.
What?
Yeah.
I thought you'd go with your Wings.
Well, I'd like to go with them, but right now, give me a reason to do it. I also have to understand in this business, you have to be objective. I'm waiting for the hammer to come down on Derek Lalonde, and maybe the Red Wings will one of these days be bold enough to bring in Joel Quenneville.
Chicago at the New York Rangers tonight.
Both the Rangers.
Okay, I'll take Chicago just because the Rangers are a grease fire. And I had kind of hoped to get into it with Moose earlier about the Rangers dealing Jacob Trouba out of there, but it didn't happen. We ran out of time. I will say this, Steve Koulias, I've referenced him a couple of times on the program today. We worked together at the Score 20-plus years ago. Number one on the radio this morning on NHL radio, he said the 8 playoff teams in the West right now in the NHL will be the playoff teams, and I tend to agree. And as far as Jacob Trouba leaving New York, as messy as it was, he just said he wasn't a fit with the coach there, Peter Laviolette. He was acquired before Laviolette was the Rangers coach, and they're just not seeing eye to eye, and he doesn't like to play Laviolette's system. Bye-bye. Coach usually wins in that scenario. And then the Anaheim Ducks at Montreal, the aforementioned Jacob Trouba will make his debut tonight for Anaheim at Montreal. Do you want to make a guess on that pick?
Well, I'll go Anaheim.
Dang, Scott, I'm taking them too.
Great minds think alike.
It's
Rob.
all good. There are only three games in the National
the Red
Hockey
Wings,
League.
I thought would take a step up, but I'm disappointed that they haven't progressed a little bit better since they were very close to reaching the playoffs and ending their drought last year.
Well, yeah.
I think that, truthfully, Derek Lalonde, they may have to make a move. I hate seeing coaches lose their job.
So do I.
But there may be a point that Steve Yzerman is going to say, you know what, I need a veteran guy in here. And there's a couple that are out there. He could either go with Gerard Gallant or he could go with Joel Quenneville. Me, personally, I'd like to see him go Joel Quenneville.
Well, before we move on to a couple other things, and I want to talk about some fun stories that are in this book, we're going to reverse roles tonight. And tonight on the South Florida Tribune podcast, the Sports Exchange.
Right.
Tell the folks what's going to happen there and who's going to be on it.
Well, Rod, myself, George Eichhorn, it'll be all hockey tonight. Last week I had 4 hockey topics, and we also talked about Michigan and Ohio State. And one of the topics we will talk about will be at 4 Nations.
Face-off, yeah.
Face-off, is that what you call it? I'm not familiar with it, but you're going to make sure a lot of people are. And we'll talk about the Trouba trade, as well as the fact that the Rangers signed Shesterkin into a long-term deal.
Well, that'll be fun. So, yeah, folks, tonight on YouTube, the South Florida Tribune channel, go give them a follow, a subscription, and we'll be talking about these things tonight. I cover the hockey for Scott.
Rod's done a really nice job. I'm very fortunate to have him on my staff. when he approached me, I'd like to be your hockey guy.
You approached me.
No problem. I approached him, but you also were telling me where I should eat in Charlotte, North Carolina, weren't you? And then that's how we went out there and struck a conversation. And then all of a sudden we got together, and it was a no-brainer bringing Rod Pedersen on my network.
Allie in Texarkana, Texas writes in. She says, happy Monday, RP and squad. Late, but better late than never. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We did, Allie, and we talked about the Dallas Stars' big win over the Calgary Flames last hour. But the reason I bring this all up, George Eichhorn is one part of that show that will be on tonight, and he's a Detroit guy. Your first coworker?
Well, I got into business with them.
Your first producer?
We were, my first boss.
At WXYZ.
Right.
And on last week's show, George Eichhorn, I know everybody perked up in Western Canada that gets WXYZ on your cable package. George Eichhorn was a producer at that television station, and he said last week that the Red Wings fans are getting antsy with Steve Yzerman.
Yes.
I would have never thought that would happen.
I never would either, but you know what? They're sick and tired of losing after 8-9 years. And this is and when you talk about hockey town, they've always prided themselves about being hockey town. And it's one thing they have to have a rebuild, but when it gets into 7, 8, 9 years at some point or another, you have to be able to put the pieces together and put together a good product. You have a brand new stadium as well. So, these fans aren't paying, chump change for these tickets. They're paying a lot of change for it.
Yeah, well, there you go. You heard it here second. Red Wings fans are starting to turn on Stevie Yzerman. George Eichhorn broke the story, if you will, on last week's South Florida Tribune Sports Exchange, and we'll be talking about it more tonight. Now, the fun stories.
And by the way, he wrote the foreword for this book.
Scott wrote a book. We always have fun with that.
Yep,
the way your wife says it, Candy, the Rolls Royce of women.
Right.
So I was telling Serena, your story about sleeping in your car at the Jacksonville Super Bowl. And she's like, oh, was Scott bragging about that? I said, no, I don't think he was bragging about it. I think you were basically saying that was your only option, to sleep in your car at the Super Bowl. Over to you.
How many Super Bowls has Jacksonville gotten since? Haven't gotten any.
I learned that in your book. None.
You know what? If I were equipped, I have a van now. Could be a lot easier, but I was sleeping in a Jeep Cherokee at the time. But with all due respect, Jacksonville's a great town. I've covered a lot of football there. They tried to sell the NFL on cruise ships to make up the difference in the hotel rooms. Always try something once. If it doesn't work, you don't do it again. The NFL gave Jacksonville a one and done. But it was a great experience, and I had it was incredible to cover that Super Bowl. Met a lot of great people.
For those that have just tuned in, they called him the Motor City Madmouth, and you're finding out why. I'm just pausing everybody so their brains can catch up to what you just said. What Super Bowl was that?
That one was Super Bowl 39.
39, okay. Jacksonville, Florida. They didn't have enough hotel rooms, the NFL and the host committee. So what did they do? They brought in a cruise ship.
All right.
And docked them. And the media stayed on the cruise ship?
Well, everybody stayed all over the place. They did. And what I ended up doing is if I had to take a shower, I stayed at a rest area. I went to a rest area and camped out there. And I told the guy who was running it, I'll tell you what, I'll get you a couple team media guys if you let me take a shower. The guy was nice about it. He told me when he was working, it was unbelievable. What people will do to get that sports memorabilia, let alone Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that was Super Bowl 39.
Right.
I'm sorry. Who was in it?
Jacksonville.
It was in Jacksonville, yeah.
And New England and Philadelphia. Tom Brady, Andy Reid against Bill Belichick.
Well, I can't imagine that you were the only media person sleeping in their car at the Super Bowl, let alone civilians.
I don't know, but I know I was. And I'll tell you where I slept the last night is I actually slept over at the convention center when I camped out on a lazy boy chair all night and then got cleaned up over in the convention center because at that particular point, the other guy wasn't going to be there. And I just said, I'll just stay here. So I didn't have to worry about finding parking the next day.
Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes in. He says, that sounds like a Grey Cup in Regina, except there are no cruise ships near. Right. You're totally 100% right on that. That's one zany story from your book. I'm just sitting here going, dude, the man has done it all and met it feels like everybody.
I've met a lot of people, that's for sure. I will be working on a second one in 2025 to make up for what we didn't put in this. It won't be as long as the first one, but I want to make sure that whatever changes in terms of streaming and things like that, then I'll try to bring them up. It's not going to be anything as elaborate as this first one, but you always want to feel like if there are updates that you're able to do it, and that's what my target is.
You can order the book at SouthFloridaTribune.com, where you can also read our writings. I cover the NHL with a weekly column for the South Florida Tribune. What other Super Bowls did you cover?
I covered Super Bowl 33, the first one here in Miami. John Elway wins going out against the Atlanta Falcons. I covered another one in South Florida when you had the New Orleans Saints ended up beating the Indianapolis Colts. And the last one I covered was Pittsburgh against Arizona as well.
Tampa Bay.
Tampa. 4 great Super Bowls.
Well, you said after the Jacksonville one, you're like, I'm not quoting from your book. You're like, I'm not sleeping in my car again. I'll just cover hometown Super Bowls.
Well, I mean,
Pretty much.
I knew the Tampa area well, so I knew where to get a room there. And one of them, I stayed in my bed. The other one, Super Bowl 33, I was living in Michigan and was able to stay in a lot of the media hotels downtown, so I didn't have a problem there.
I apologize. BW in Edmonton's been waiting patiently, and he knows we got to go right away to bring in Jessi Pierce from NHL.com. He says, have you heard anything about the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium?
Absolutely. They'll be playing at George Steinbrenner Field at least next year. That's the home of the Tampa Tarpons. They're a Class A team. It holds about 10,000, 11,000 people. Hey, that 10,000, 11,000 people that they'll bring there will be a sellout compared to the piddly crowds that they had over at Tropicana Field. And I've always thought baseball should be played in Hillsborough County, not Pinellas County, where the Rays are at. So it'll be at George Steinbrenner Field, right in Tampa, adjacent to the Bucs Stadium, Raymond James Stadium.
That is right across the street. That's a wonderful part of the world. Buccaneers going to win the NFC South?
Sure.
Who would have thought that a month ago?
Well, that division changes every year. Anything's possible. Baker Mayfield has done a good job there. Todd Bowles. The Buccaneers have had a lot of injuries, let alone to their receiving corps. So I like what the Buccaneers are doing. They're hanging in there. Todd Bowles doing a good job. Baker Mayfield got around the bus tag. All he needed to do was find a place that wanted him, appreciated him, gave him the responsibility. It didn't hurt that he matured a bit, too.
Hey, BW writes in from Edmonton and says, thanks, Rod. Thank him. See what I'm saying? A veritable fountain of knowledge. America's John Frenzy. Some of the viewers are nicknaming you Scott Frenzy. I think it's a little late for a nickname at your stage of your life. We're going to stick with the Motor City Madmouth because it's so great. But they're like adopting you.
Well, I appreciate you folks out in Canada. I really do. I have a lot of respect for Canadians, born and raised in Detroit. Windsor was across the border, so I used to get that extra TV station out in Windsor, and it was unbelievable. So we could see a lot of the CBC hockey night in Canada. So I've always had the utmost respect for Canadians, and I'm very fortunate to have a partner that is really big out in that country that I'm pleased to have on my network. He's a great person, and one of the best moves I made all year bringing him on board.
Thank you, Scott, for coming in. We'll talk to you tonight. For the rest of you and your entertaining comments, we'll get to those in the last segment. When we come back, we're going to Minnesota. Jessi Pierce joins us from NHL.com on the Bar Down Beauties podcast. We'll be right back here on Game Plus Television, streaming live daily, and, of course, podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit. As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. we're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Hour 2 of the RP Show brought to you by Culligan Water. Clear water, clear choice. Filter out the bad and taste the good. Culligan Water of Regina. Visit their website at culliganregina.com. Okay, we don't try to bother her that often. Jessi Pierce of NHL.com and the Bar Down Beauties podcast joins us. Hey, Jessi. You should be smiling. Is Minnesota the best state for sports right now in America with what's going on with the Vikings and Wild? You tell me.
I mean, it feels that way. I think us Minnesotans are all collectively holding our breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop because this doesn't happen. Usually it ends in devastation for us, maybe a missed field goal, maybe a number of things that could go awry. But right now it feels pretty darn good to have the Vikings and the Wild performing as well as they are.
Good for you. I was going to say good for you, man, but I'll say good for you, lady. And because we are primarily hockey, as are you, I think, if somebody had told you in the second week of December that the Wild would be in a tie for the #1 overall team in the NHL, like, we're close to Christmas, we're past the third way point, I think. What would you have said?
I would have thought they were crazy. I would have asked to get whatever that they were on that made them so delusional. I mean, you look at this Minnesota Wild team, they're returning a lot of the same roster that did very, very poorly last year. Not much has changed except you're getting rebounds from guys like Philip Gustafsson, who is really manning the net right now. Kirill Kaprizov didn't start out as slow as he did last year. And you have some injuries, but you're really navigating. There's just an entirely different feel around this because, yes, they're missing some key players in Matt Zuccarello, Joel Eriksson and Jonas Brodin, but it feels different. It feels like they can weather that storm, whereas last year those injuries really took a toll on them. So it's wild, pun intended, to see how crazily well that they are performing, but it's exciting, and it's exciting for the future of the Minnesota Wild too.
Yeah, but I mean, I know how close you were or what you thought of the last coach, Dean Evison, but what's different from a year ago is a new head coach. How much does that have to do with it in your estimation?
Yeah, I mean, I love Dino. Dino's a character, and John Hines came in and was a very different coach. He's so focused on the structure, which I think has really shown in the way that the Minnesota Wild have performed. He's very into every little detail. Not to say that Dean Evson wasn't, but it's just a very different style of coaching. And this year, John Hines was able to come in at training camp. And there's a difference when you're able to do that, right? Be with these guys from the get-go, from the jump at camp. And there was such a heavy emphasis on those details of the game. He really wanted players to continue to focus on those little things while still playing their game. And also, I love John Hines in the way that he's not afraid to shake things up, to move things around. Dean Evson very often got married to his lines, and he didn't really change. He never really counterthing. Whereas John Hines certainly is willing to move things around if things aren't going well within the game. Not to mention, he's not afraid to double shift their best player, which is Kirill Kaprizov, and that certainly pays dividends in the end.
Is Kirill Kaprizov the best player you've ever seen play for the Wild? You've been covering this team you're the only reporter I know covering the team for NHL.com long enough. That's not saying you're old, but is he the best Wild player you've seen?
Yeah, hands down. I mean, Marian Gaborik is the closest that you could come to having a bona fide superstar, but he's better than Gaborik. And I was saying that a couple years ago. The way that Kirill approaches the game and the way that he continues to be a student while not just relying on his incredible skill, which includes passing, which includes scoring, which includes just battling along the boards. I mean, he is a superstar that is so fun to watch because he works so gosh darn hard at it too. Even on the things that come easy. He's the first on the ice. He's the last on the ice. So yeah, Kirill definitely the best in Wild franchise history, which shows in the record books too. He continues to shatter a lot of the records set by Gaborik, but while shattering his own too, he continues to outdo himself. So he's somebody that Bill Guerin certainly is hoping will be in for the long run with Minnesota.
Viewer John in Winnipeg says, I think the Wild can win the Stanley Cup. And this is coming from a Winnipeg Jets super fan. And believe me, he is. I know in Winnipeg they refer to the Wild as their top rival, or at least I believe they do. Is it reciprocated by the Wild, or do you have another bigger rivalry than Winnipeg?
It's between them and Dallas. I mean, Chicago used to be kind of the big rival because they always seem to get the best, but obviously with Chicago going through their rebuild of their own, that competition has lessened slightly. I love when Winnipeg comes to town. I love the passion of their fans. I really enjoy Jets fans. It's fun to see them doing well. So I would say Winnipeg's definitely up there, but the Dallas Stars, there's obviously a little bit of hatred there just with the whole relocation of the North Stars, all of that good stuff. Playoff series as well. Dallas was their latest rival, but Winnipeg is definitely up there. So it's kind of fun that they're having such a great year as well, because it's a good thing when you've got two top dogs going head to head in a rivalry series.
And that, a playoff series would just be monumental between the two. But I'm glad we talked about the rivalries, because I didn't know who would have been number one for Minnesota. Dallas certainly makes sense, and then Chicago geographically. Listen, we talk about Bar Down Beauties. I've listened to it. It's great. NHL.com and your coverage there, but your Vikings coverage, you do some of that too, right?
I do, yeah. Every Monday we have a Before I Die, which is leaning on Before I Die. We'd love to see a Lombardi trophy here in Minnesota. They've been a team to watch. Sam Darnold, man. I know you're a Vikings fan, Rod. Are you shocked as they're doing so well?
As I wear my Cowboys, I will say I like the Vikings. I don't love the Vikings. I respect them, and I have so many friends that are just diehard like yourself. That's where I wanted to wind this around. Like when Sam Darnold was brought in, he was just supposed to be a placeholder, a spot holder, right, for J.J. McCarthy. And listen, your fans are no different than any other fans. Have you heard people go, what do we do next year when J.J.'s healthy? Or are they just enjoying the ride and not going there yet?
It's a little bit of both, right? NFL fans can be a little unhinged sometimes, sports fans in general. Sam Darnold was supposed to be a gap stop, right? He was just supposed to be that layover, and it'll be curious to see what happens if he does indeed take the Minnesota Vikings to the Super Bowl, because then you have to consider re-signing him. Right now, I think he'll probably end up testing free agency. And there were a couple weeks in there where Sam Darnold played like Sam Darnold, right? I mean, he definitely was throwing some interceptions, but to see the chemistry that he's built with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson has been absolutely tremendous. It's been so fun to watch. And a big credit to Kevin O'Connell, who we have dubbed the quarterback whisperer, who seems to get the most out of quarterbacks, to their surprise. Josh Dobbs, for instance, last year. It's incredible. But JJ, I think, is the future. I know a lot of fans here are very excited. But we're enjoying the ride. I thought the Vikings were going to win maybe 8 games this year, and they're certainly outdoing us. This is what Minnesota does, though. They surprise you with their sneaky good years with quarterbacks that probably shouldn't be as great as they are. But hey, it's a fun time to watch.
Let's be honest. What's the bigger surprise, the Wild or the Vikings?
That's a great question. I think I would say the Vikings. I mean, I'm also very surprised with how well the Wild are doing and how consistently well that they're doing. But I really did not see the Vikings having 11 wins on the season, right? Like, I just did not see that happening, and they're still 4 weeks away. It's that one to me is the bigger surprise. Minnesota, sure, they could have maybe figured it out, but I would say they're second. Yeah, Vikings, that's my biggest surprise.
All right, let's not forget. You know, 3 teams from that division in the playoffs, it appears. So it's 12 wins in the toughest division in the league. So for as long as it goes, I wish you well, Jessi. Thanks for this. We won't bother you till it's over, but enjoy the ride. And we love your coverage. Keep it up.
Appreciate it, Rod. We'll talk to you.
Jessi Pierce joining us from Minnesota. The state of hockey, they say. But right now, the state of surprises. Okay. Next up, a sports update and one final viewer takeover on a real fun day today, 902-518-3033. And, of course, the streaming chats. We'll be right back here on Game Plus Television, streaming live, and, of course, podcasting wherever the best podcasts are.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit. As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902 518 3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Okay, lots of time left here in overtime on this program. Overtime Hockey Lanes brings you overtime appropriately here on the RP Show. You can find them at 28th Street, Northeast Calgary, the best place to work on your game or just have fun. Baseball has batting cages. Golf has driving ranges. Why would hockey not have shooting lanes? Oh, wait, they do. And if you're a dum-dum and forgot to book your Christmas party, your office party, they got plenty of space for you. Licensed bar there. We love it. And I stop there every time I'm in Calgary, especially to see Randy and Michelle, but also shoot some pucks. Okay, I'll get to the sports update in a moment. Everybody is, Mark just informed me, we got about 8 minutes-ish, 7 to 8 minutes. That's an eternity in the television business to get to your questions and comments. So the Motor City Mad Mouse Scott Morganroth, he is America's John Frenzy. He had a lid on it today more than he normally does. And the reason was I said, Scott, we're in an office building and I have yet to soundproof the studio yet. So just keep a lid on it if you can. So he actually did. The Motor City Mad Mouth, Scott Morganroth from the South Florida Tribune, but he was still himself. He's a hell of a lot of fun, a great soul, and I'm so happy that he reached out and brought me onto his team. So to answer some of the questions for the viewers here, and the usual gangs all together, the Rod Squad, Tony from George Fox Country, that's Cochrane, Alberta, wants to know why they call the stadium in Tampa Bay, the baseball stadium, George Steinbrenner Field, or George Steinbrenner Stadium, right across the street from where the Buccaneers play, Raymond James Stadium. And he wrote in multiple times wanting, I couldn't get to him because I was in the interview with Jessi Pierce from NHL.com, but now I can. It's the Yankees AAA affiliate plays there. The AAA Tampa Bay Yankees, by the name right, and George owns the team and he owns the stadium, just like he does up in New York and he does in Tampa Bay. That's why. I know it can be a little confusing. So for Tony and Cochrane, I'm just saying he owns the stadium, but he owns the team. He does live in New York. He is a New Yorker, but you have to understand, the owner of the Miami Dolphins is a New Yorker, Stephen Ross. The owner of the Florida Panthers, Vincent Viola, is a New Yorker. They're all up there, but they own things here. It's a Florida thing, I guess. Allie in Texarkana writes in regarding the comments of Jessi Pierce. She says, I do agree with her. NFL fans are so different from hockey fans. I was wearing my Pittsburgh gear on Saturday and got yelled at it by some Eagles fans. Did I not tell you, Allie? I was in Dallas in 2012 and almost got beat up in a gas station. And for once, it wasn't even my fault. Usually I've done something to warrant me getting my ass kicked. In this case, no. I was there hosting a sports trip because I've been all over America doing that. Wearing a Cowboys jersey. They were playing the Eagles that day. It was an NFL Sunday. But I had on Saskatchewan Rough Riders Reebok shoes. They were very bright green and white. And these Eagles fans thought they were Eagles shoes. It should have tipped them off that I was wearing a Cowboys jersey, but they're from Philadelphia, so slower, you know what I mean? And these guys grabbed me and put their elbow right under my chin up against the Slurpee machine. And I'm like, what? And they're like, your shoes. You got Eagles shoes. I'm like, no, I don't. reached down, took them off. They had no idea what the Saskatchewan logo was on them, but it wasn't an Eagles logo, and I lived to tell about it. And to be honest, I'll be perfectly honest, it's kind of taken away my love of going to NFL games. If I'm not sitting in the press box, I'm not going. That's just me. It's violent. People are rude. I've had a lot of bad experiences. And as I say, for once, out of nothing that I've done. It's dumb. Allie in Texarkana says, imagine Rod having to tell someone else to dial it back. Tell me about it. What else did we have? Keep the comments coming. 902-518-3033. We were a little all over the road. Tony in Cochrane says, thanks again, Rod. Makes sense now. It's taken me 3+ years to kind of get my mind around how this all works down here. I wouldn't expect you people to get it at all. So that's why we explain it. Sports update. There are 3 games on the NHL schedule today, including one in Montreal where the Canadiens and Ducks will be looking to snap losing skids. The Habs are coming off a loss while the Ducks have dropped 2 in a row. Jacob Trouba expected to make his debut tonight for the New York Rangers. Those Rangers host the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Buffalo Sabres welcome the Detroit Red Wings. I wanted to get more into the Jacob Trouba New York situation. We'll do that more with Moose and our NHL guests that we have throughout the day. Throughout the week. It'll be tough to top last week with the big name CFL guests like Buck Pierce and Mark Killam and so forth, but we're working on it. But this Jacob Trouba exit out of New York, while if we can all agree that the Rangers are dysfunctional, but they're so far below the New York Jets on the radar, nobody really notices except for the hockey fans. But the new coach, Peter Laviolette, wanted Trouba to play a certain way. He couldn't or wouldn't, wasn't interested, and had to go. That's according to Steve Coolius today on NHL radio, but he's saying there's nothing more to it than that. It wasn't a fit anymore. And we all get that. Sometimes you're not a fit in a place, so you got to leave. The Toronto Raptors host the New York Knicks in tonight's lone game on the NBA schedule. The 14-9 Knicks sit 4th in the Eastern Conference standings, while the 7-17 Raptors are 14th in the East and have lost 2 straight. Anthony Davis scored 30 points and had 11 rebounds. D'Angelo Russell added 28 with 14 assists, and the LA Lakers beat the Portland Trailblazers 107-98 last night without LeBron, who missed his first game of the NBA season because of a left foot contusion. Just thought I would throw that in there. How are we doing for time, Clark? The sports update brought to you by Landmark Cinemas. In Landmark Cinemas now, Red One. After Santa Claus, codename Red One, is kidnapped, the North Pole's head of security, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, must team up with the world's most infamous bounty hunter, Chris Evans, in a globe-trotting, action-packed mission to save Christmas. I might go to that this afternoon. Red One. In Landmark Cinemas now, starring The Rock. It's the best Christmas show you're going to see this time of year. Thanks to the Motor City Mad Mouse Scott Morganroth, the Moose, Gus Frerotte, Jessi Pierce. It was a busy one. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and participating, everybody, with us. We're the most interactive show on television. We'll do it all again tomorrow right here, noon Eastern.
You screwed up, Clark. How about that?